second episode of Hotties, a Spotlight Network television show. This episode would be so fun because I have some of my very special friends here today. If y'all know me, y'all know I'm from Kansas City, and all like 90% of my friends are from New York. So I have my fave New York girls here today. My freshman year roommate, Donna Gordon, Couture McQueen, and Kayla Jack. Whoever wants to go first can introduce themselves and give the people our intro.
My name is Katora McQueen. I'm a second year student at Howard University, and I major in communications with a concentration in TV and film. And yeah, and Lauren's my friend, and I love her, and I'm so pleased to be on the second episode. So yeah.
Hey y'all, my name is Kayla Jack. I'm a sophomore business management major from Brooklyn, New York. Duh. Just really happy to be here today. It's great. I'm really comfortable with the energy we've created in the studio today.
Hey y'all, I'm Donna Gordon. I'm a sophomore human development major from Brooklyn, New York, by way of Jamaica. And I'm really happy to be here today with Lauren, Kayla, and Couture.
We all have our feelings about Zoom U. So how do you feel like college on campus and online has affected your mental health? If so, like what way and how?
I think that college has affected my mental health because I'm gonna be honest, I've never been like, what's the word? Like a student that applies himself, but does that mean I was dumb? No. Like I always had good grades, like, B plus, A, B, you know what I'm saying? Like decent grades. And I got to college, I was like, okay, so we actually have to try here. And after that, it was really just a slippery slope. Like
high school is a lot different where you're kind of like moving around with people all day, and you're in one building. But at Howard, it was like you're so spread out and you could be around a whole bunch of people all day, but I just kind of felt like really alone a lot because there's so, like, compared to my high school was really small. So going to Howard, even though Howard's not that big, it was very easy to kind of just get lost in like a sea of people. And I kind of felt like alone a lot of the time, especially because getting a lot of things done in college is kind of your own responsibility. So it was a lot different from being in an environment where we're all in this together, kind of.
I just feel like with college, it's really hard to know what people got going on. So don't just think it's you. Don't ever just think you're alone and you're the only one feeling down because 9 times out of 10, your roommate's going through something. Your friends are going through something. If you reach out to them, y'all talk. Like I know me and Danae have had some talks in the middle of the night, sitting there looking at each other like, man, this is hard. So don't be afraid to like reach out. Like me, Couture, Kayla, all of them, we all had talks all together. It's
that day we did that thing in Kaylin's room was so helpful.
Oh
yeah. If y'all could get together with your friends and just like touch base with each other, because like, okay, yeah, you see your friend every day, but I'm telling you, don't know what is going on like at all. And that's how you have to be cautious about how you speak to people and how you approach people. And that's definitely what I learned in college. Like, you can't just speak to anyone any kind of way. And I feel like Lauren definitely taught me that because, like, I grew up like
you be going off at the mouth.
You got a mouth on her, that's all.
No, in my family, it's just like, tough skin. So I'm talking to Lauren. I'm like, yo, toughen up. Like, what's going on here? And then I'm like, oh, like, stuff affects people. Like, I feel like that's just something I really needed to learn.
Oh.
Yeah. Not like that, but like.
And I noticed that about myself as well. And I think I had noticed that I did that because of, like, my mom. And I had picked up that behavior from her in the way, like, she talks to me and stuff. Not to say my mom abuses me. But.
Which is not a laughing matter at all, people.
Yeah. So that, and then also personally, I think it was like right before my birthday, a couple of days before my birthday, I experienced something that messed me up in here. So like from then, it was kind of like they noticed that I was coping with it by kind of turning it into a joke. Like it wasn't funny. Nothing about it was funny, but it was like they struggled with like understanding how to deal with it because the way like I have reacted to it. So also I feel like in terms of your mental health, you kind of have to take things really seriously in order for other people to know how to help you.
So with that being said, while we're on the topic of mental health, what are your thoughts of mental health in the Black community? So what are stigmas of mental health prominent in your households growing up?
Yes.
Oh, I want to go. Sorry. Sorry. Definitely, there were stigmas of mental health. Like, basically, when I was younger, right, I always liked to talk to people and I always liked to help people with their problems. So I was always saying to my mom, like, oh, like, I should be a therapist or I should go to therapy. And mom's like, therapy? That's for crazy people. You're not crazy. Mm-hmm. No. Therapy is for sane people. Like, there's stuff that goes on that you need to speak about. And I just feel like, personally for me, like, I'm coming from a Caribbean background. Like, I'm Jamaican. They believe that there's no problem that exists. Like, there's nothing that could go wrong in your life once you have a roof over your head and you have food to eat. Like, if the Black community, like, if families just become more aware of like what's going on with individuals within their families and then like start taking it seriously, we could fix so much stuff because there's a lot of stuff that's going on.
I feel like Black families, but like specifically speaking of like, you know, the West Indian diaspora, like they don't, like, they put physical ailments at a priority. Like, just because you're not, like, there aren't wounds or there isn't like visible indication that you're ill or like, you know, you're not at your best health, that doesn't mean something isn't going on with you. Like, I feel like we're too far along as like a society to not recognize that mental illness can be just as detrimental as, you know, physical illness. And like Donnie said, like, a lot of our families disregard that, or first of all, a lot of our family members probably struggle with it and don't even identify it as that. They just think, oh, I'm sad, oh, I'm nervous. Like, but no, like, sometimes it's deeper than that. And sometimes like the behaviors that they show are indications of those mental illnesses, but because they never had anybody sit down and ask how they were doing up here, they don't recognize it, and then they project that onto their children, and that's how it. So I feel like we need to be the, you know, not to sound corny, but we need to be the generation that actually identifies what's going on with people throughout their whole body, because wellness is everywhere. It's from your mind, it's your body, it's everything.
Push it to the side. Like Katora said, I think if there's nothing wrong with you external, they kind of just feel like you're fine. And they also feel like because we're so young that we haven't experienced life yet, there's nothing for us to feel down about or feel sad about or feel stressed about. But I feel like that's not true, and kind of downplaying somebody's emotion kind of makes them feel even worse. Like, if I'm having a really bad day and I just want to talk to my mom, and she's like, what are you so sad about? I had to go to work today and I had to do this, and I'm fine. Okay, never mind. Like, whatever.
So. And I know I spoke already, but I wanted to say that like how Kayla said that like your own family will invalidate you, that'll sometimes give you this like learned behavior of invalidating yourself, like thinking that there's nothing wrong with you, but everybody around you is like, girl, this is not normal, like the behaviors that you're exhibiting are not normal. But it's like if you have a constant voice telling you there are people doing worse, like there are people, you know what I mean, like they'll use some example of a person that's doing bad.
That's dying. Somebody that's dying.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, somebody else's bad is not going to look like your bad. Somebody else's depressed is not going to look like you're depressed. Someone else's anxiety is not going to look like your anxiety. And because of that, when you internalize all of that, you're like, yeah, no, there's nothing wrong with me. So we also have to like unlearn how to stop having that voice in our head for ourselves. Yeah.
And I kind of want to, like, that made me think of something else that happened within my family. Like, I know a family member of mine, like, she was going through it, and she was thinking of suicide. And the reaction that came from my family was how I knew, like, yeah, no, we have to unlearn all of this. Because I remember a family member verbatim said, what is she killing herself for? What is there to kill yourself for? You have family. You're living. Like, everything's gonna be okay. No, you can't just invalidate how someone feels. Like, obviously they feel like they're drowning and no one can understand it. And although, yes, suicide might not be the best choice, you can't just say, what is there to kill yourself for? Like, that is the most insensitive response that you can ever give to somebody. And I feel like the Black community is always very insensitive whenever someone is like having a mental issue or something like that, like they'll just be like, oh, they'll be fine tomorrow. Like, oh, like it's just a phase. A lot of people, it's not a phase. And that's why when a lot of people in the Black community kill themselves, they're just like, oh my God, but did they really have to kill themselves? Yes. Because no one no one cared. Nobody saw that they were drowning. And when they tried to express it, everybody just swept it underneath the rug.
And then when the person does take action and do something, I wish I would have been there for you.
Yeah. I wish I would have known they were trying to tell you. Like,
well, girl.
Just to move past that, because that could really like frustrate me and make me so upset to the point like it's just like, why y'all not listening to people literally telling you how they're feeling and you're just passing it along? So 2020 has been a scary movie to say the least, with COVID-19, wildfires, an incredible amount of police brutality and the protests against that. Something that has recently caught my attention has been the #EndSARS hashtag on Twitter. And for the hotties that don't know, SARS is a special anti-robbery squad in Nigeria who have been linked to torture, unlawful imprisonment, extortion, and murder. I noticed the controversy on Twitter between Africans and African Americans. Some Africans were saying African Americans weren't supporting the people in Nigeria, and they would accuse African Americans of only using Black Lives Matter for African Americans. With you all being Caribbean, I wanted to get y'all's perspective on this. So, do y'all resonate with what the Africans have to say, or do you feel as though their accusations are counterintuitive to the unanimous fight for equality?
You go ahead. I feel like it's kind of like half and half. Like I can understand why they feel that way, and obviously I'm not going to say, well, why you feel that way, because obviously, you know, there's a reason that they feel that way. But I also think it's kind of just an issue that is rooted in slavery. Like literally, like there's always been a divide between African Americans and people who are like like African. I feel like Black Lives Matter applies to everyone, and it should apply to everyone who is Black, because Black Lives Matter. Like it's not saying African American lives matter. So I think, but then I also feel like whenever we use that hashtag, it's kind of just towards things that have only happened like here in the US. Like if you were to search in the hashtag, you wouldn't really see anything that's going on in Africa. So, and I think that this, I think #EndSARS has kind of been like a wake-up call, because there's been plenty of things that have happened in Africa in the past that people were not aware of, and that it's like when we learned about it, it was too late, like the apartheids. Because I think now, I think we're in like an awakening where a lot of people really want to help and reach out and like do a lot more instead of just talking about it. And I think people are doing everything that they can now. I think before it was like, before social media, people kind of felt, well, if I can't march, then I can't really help. But now I think because we're able to share resources with people and give them information, even if that's the only thing that we can do, I think that's really helpful, because it might come across somebody who can really do something to make a change.
Okay, I was just gonna say that I agree with Kayla, and I think that a lot of like obviously, if you care about something, you're going to speak about it. If you know about something, you're going to speak about it. But I also think that, like, in America, sometimes people here are, like, in a vacuum. And, like, even with the Black Lives Matter movement, like, when you think Black Lives Matter, you know, like, even, like, just these past couple months, like, oh, somebody got, like, lynched at Central Park, like, oh, somebody got shot, like, but it's not always, you know, like, yes, people are dying with #EndSARS, but it's not always just about dying, and it's not always just about American police brutality. Like, it's everywhere that there are Black people. Just because it started here doesn't mean like that should be our main focus. And I feel like people here feel like that. And what you said about like it tying back to slavery, like almost everything is because of, you know, Eurocentrism. Like the whole idea that I saw a lot of African people on Twitter saying like, you know, you guys used to, you know, call us, you know, they used to call them names, like they used to make fun of them and stuff. And they feel like now those same people are trying to like pick out their culture. But like, guess what? We can all say that about white people. Like I've heard people say the same argument about white people. It's all about who has more systemic power. And we just have to remember that yes, there are like levels to this, but the common enemy, not the common enemy, but you know what I'm saying? Like the common enemy we have to tackle is racism, not white people, but racism itself.
No, it is them people.
You a little sketchy. We ain't gonna lie. Go ahead.
But yeah, I would agree with both Kayla and Couture, especially where Couture was saying it's not always just about people dying. Like, I watched a video recently in my sociology class about the founders and creators of Black Lives Matter and why they created it. And what stuck out to me was one of the founders were like, oh, and Black Lives Matter was also created to bring attention to climate change in Africa and how it's been affecting the continent. And I just thought that was interesting because every time you hear Black Lives Matter, I've never heard anybody saying anything about climate change in Africa and how Africa is being affected and how the resources that have been robbed from Africa, like how it's left the continent. And I feel like Africans and Caribbeans and African Americans, I feel like that divide definitely started from slavery, and it heightened through colonialism and immigration, because Africans and Caribbeans, they have this ideology that African Americans are lazy. Like that's just what it is. When you grow up in a Caribbean household, in the African household, it's, oh, you know, you came here, like you have to be better than them because they have all these resources and they're not using them. So I feel like Africans, they're kind of just like, oh, okay, and the whole time that we've been here, y'all been bullying us, da 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 da. But Beyonce came out in Black Panther, and now y'all want to be African. So I feel like that's what they feel. And then it's like, okay, y'all was all for it when Beyonce did it. Y'all was all for it with Black Panther. But now our people are literally dying, and y'all don't want to say anything. So I understand why they're hurt, because it's like, look at you profiting from our culture, right? Of course, this is your culture too, but technically you don't know where you're from in Africa, so you're just taking up all of it. But now something's actually going on. It's a real issue. And you're like, oh, well, I don't really know much about Africa. So no, like, if you're going to be proud of Africa when Beyonce is doing Black is King, if you're going to be proud of Africa when Black Panther comes out, you have to be proud of Africa, and you have to stand up for Africa when all this stuff is going on. Like, African Americans, I feel like they're just kind of in like this constant divide. It's like, when you're in America, you're like the second class citizen. Like, you're not really, it's like, yeah, you're American without all the benefits. Exactly. And then it's like, yeah, you're African without all the culture. Like, you don't, like, it's kind of it's a hard space to be in.
So to cool off a little bit, because that was a real heavy conversation. That was a heavy conversation. The mental health was a heavy conversation. So I want to shift gears a little bit. And I wanted to ask y'all, this is a top question. Y'all got to answer first thing that comes to your head. So which freshman boys dorm is better, Drew or Cook? Go.
Cook.
I had a terrible experience at Cook, so I'm going to say Drew.
What did you say?
I'm going to say Drew.
She said Drew.
I feel like Drew was lit. Like, you could go into Drew with one person and you end up seeing all your guy friends. Like,
okay, I feel like
that was lit.
I feel like Drew is cool for like the community aspect, but like
Couture did not get to go.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
Say that I think I'm gonna say Cook because I have a special vendetta against Drew because one time I went to Drew and I went to go see my guy friend.
First day of visitation.
Yeah, and then it was midnight and all the boys are lined up in the lobby waiting to see who's gonna come down the stairs, who's gonna come down the escalator. I feel like that's very childish.
And don't forget, he said you don't got no hoodie, no sunglasses. You should be ashamed.
Yeah. Like, girl, who
like,
said
ashamed of what, girl? I wasn't doing nothing in here. And if I was,
and I feel like they don't get that same treatment when they go to, you know, the co-ed dorms or the girl dorms. Nobody does that to them. So
because we don't care. Y'all, like, why y'all sit downstairs waiting to see who comes out of whose dorm? Like,
because they don't got nobody coming to see them.
Exactly.
No, literally. It be boys just sitting down there with nobody, just sitting.
With nothing to do. They're just bored and they want to police people. But like, if I was a boy, I would prefer Drew for the community aspect, because I'm not going to lie. Although they're annoying in Drew, they have a nice little community in there. But for living, like, if I want to live better, I would pick Cook, because Cook is cleaner. If
I was to have a man,
has more accommodations.
I would prefer to have a man live in Cook.
Yeah.
Cook do be vibes. Cook do be vibes.
Like upper class type, like,
yeah. Cook is like if you had to compare the two, Cook is like Harlem, and Drew is like the Bronx. They both uptown. They both a little ghetto, but one is definitely better than the other.
Don't do that.
I need to say. Well, that concludes the second episode of Our Hotties. Yeah. I would like to thank my guests, Kayla, Danae, and Couture, so much for being here. Also, Hotties, don't forget that we have an advice segment. So DM us your questions to our Instagram at HotttiesHU. And y'all stay safe. Until next time, one love.
Bye.